Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video, I'm going to talk a little bit about the approach that I would take if I was going to learn React in 2024. So in this video, I'm going to spend a brief amount of time explaining why React is important and why I think you should learn it. Then I'm going to present you guys with a list of topics that are completely obsolete for React in 2024, and that if I were you, I would steer away from learning them, so that if you ever see that in a video that maybe is 1 or 2 years old, you actually don't spend time learning something that you won't need. I'll also give you a simple roadmap of topics that I personally think ranging from beginner to advanced, so that you can kind of have a structure to how you're gonna approach your learning. And finally, I'm going to recommend not only resources that I think are helpful for you, but also how I think you can break through if you're currently stuck learning React and not being able to get out of the tutorial hell, where you're just constantly watching tutorials and not actually being able to learn anything. So I really hope you gain value from this video. Before we get into the video, actually, if you can leave a like and subscribe, I would massively appreciate it. It will help push my videos to more people, and I would be eternally grateful if you guys could do that. So with that in mind, let's get into the video. Okay, everyone. So let's start with talking about topics that I think are obsolete and you could skip right over if you're going to learn React in 2024. Now, the list is appearing right now on the screen, but I'll briefly explain each one of them. The first one being class components. If you've learned anything about React, you've probably seen that class components used to be the way you would write components, but I believe like in 2019, 2018, that already became obsolete because of the introduction of hooks and functional components. So I learned React around 2019. So I already started from the portion where we already had to learn functional components instead of class components. And I can tell you that it is way easier. In my opinion, you'll just waste time if you're watching tutorials that use class components because it's outdated. No one who's starting a project will use it nowadays, but that doesn't mean that you should never learn class components and older React styles, because if you end up working on a company that has legacy code, most likely they won't have the resources to actually rewrite their whole code base. So if you end up getting a situation like that, then for sure learn it, but leave it for the very end, because at that point, you've learned all the essential stuff and you're just learning that for a specific job or specific code base you're working on. That is also applied to higher order components, which used to be very, very common to use in React. And I still see it in certain projects that I've worked for. However, it is outdated and you shouldn't spend that much time learning it, because you won't really see it being used in newer projects. Now, another thing I think is outdated is prop types. So prop types used to be a way for you to protect the props of your components, if you're familiar with components already, by forcing certain types to them, because JavaScript by itself doesn't have types. However, if you're going to be learning React, one of the stages of learning React, in my opinion, is learning how to use TypeScript instead of JavaScript for your React applications. So when you use TypeScript, you can easily replace prop types, because TypeScript is a typed language, so you won't really need that, and it becomes completely obsolete. And if you're working in the industry right now, you'll probably be using TypeScript. I highly doubt there's a company out there using JavaScript, and if they are, I would be skeptical about their code base. Also, I chose to include Redux as one of the things on the list. However, don't get me wrong, Redux could still be used and you can still gain a lot from using it. However, there is a big contrast between how React was learned in like the older days with now, and maybe how you watch your YouTube videos might reflect on it differently. Because back in the day, if you were learning React, it wasn't just React. You had to learn React and Redux, and people had whole courses on React with Redux. It used to be something that like you have to learn, because there's no way someone would build an application in React without having a state manager, and the most famous one at the time was Redux. Obviously, there were other options like Recoil and StateX, but the thing is, Redux was the most popular one, and it still exists. There's Redux Toolkit, there's multiple different versions. I have videos on them. However, you could also just use different libraries that are more compatible with today's standards. So I do think if you want to learn Redux and Redux Toolkit, you can go ahead, but the context API is more important, in my opinion, to learn initially, and it's not necessary for you to spend a lot of time learning it in the beginning. And finally, I also made already a video this year on 6 React topics that would become obsolete with the newer version of React, which is React 19. So if you're interested in seeing that, I also added them over here. It includes stuff like they use Mimo hook, forward refs, lazy loading, all that kind of stuff. They're just becoming obsolete because with the newer version, we won't have to manually do it, and most of those things will be done automatically. But I do still think that it's important to understand why they were important to React. So later on, I'll put them as part of the advanced section of the learning roadmap. So this is basically it for the topics that I think you should avoid. Now let's go over the React roadmap of exactly which topics I would learn first and which approach I would take. Okay, everyone. So in the beginner level, so the first thing, if you've never touched React before, you'll just need to spend a little bit of time, not that much, understanding why you're even doing this, right? Understanding what is React, understanding that React is one of the most powerful libraries out there for JavaScript. It is used for creating single-page web applications where you want to have some dynamic UI that changes, right? So if you're building a website that is a social media application, something that has users interacting with it, you might want to use React. Now, it's important to understand that the reason why you would even want to learn React as opposed to any other library is the mere fact that you've learned or you've heard of this before, and you're coming to this video because you might want to learn the library. Now, React is extremely popular and powerful, and in the web dev world, the more popular a library is correlates with how much better it is. And not because what's popular is better always, but because it has a bigger community, so there's more people reporting bugs, there's more people helping the project and the library. So it's just kind of a result of all of that. And also, React is developed by Facebook, which is has that stamp of approval, meaning that they have great support, they have a whole team for them, and it's used by multiple companies in the industry right now. So it's definitely something that you should learn, because either you're a beginner who thinks that React is like the end goal or the thing that will get you a job, or you are already a developer in the industry and learning React will just add a new skill set that will open up a lot of opportunities that you currently don't have. So it's definitely something that I think you guys can benefit from learning. And understanding that is extremely important, because the next part is actually spending time learning everything else, which requires a lot of motivation. So I would start off with learning how to build an initial React app, or how to make an initial React app inside of your project. So if you watch tutorials online, you'll probably see a lot of using the CLI command create React app. Now, I'll tell you right off the bat, that is actually something that I think is obsolete, and a lot of people already agree with that. I probably should have added that to the list, but I don't think it's necessarily a topic in React. It's just a way for you to create your React application. There are multiple ways to do that, and one of them, which was the most basic one, was create React app. Now, it is officially not recommended that you use create React app anymore. There are other better options. So I would recommend that as a beginner, the first way you learn how to create a React application is by using something called Vite. Now, Vite will allow you to generate a very simple boilerplate React app and get you started with your learning. Then I would spend some time learning about what is JSX. So like what exactly differs a React app from a normal HTML app. And this will lead you to learning some of our other beginner topics like functional components, props, how to reuse components, why exactly would you even want to divide your project into different components, and stuff like that. Then I would move directly to trying to handle some user inputs inside of an application. And this will lead you to learn what is the use state hook, which is probably one of the most beginner but also most important topics you can learn. This is the first introduction to React hooks, so it's definitely something that you want to get good at. So definitely spend some time learning that, and how to probably make like a website or a page that includes an input where you can type and maybe display whatever the user is typing, or allow a user to click a button and make some sort of change to the application. That will definitely keep you at a level where you can continue progressing. Then I would progress to the following topics. I would go through conditional rendering, super important in React. Then how to use lists in React. So probably using the map function and mapping through a list and displaying a list of items. Probably using a component for that. That's definitely important as well. And then maybe how to handle a whole form in your application. How to get the data, how to submit, how to put everything into states, all that kind of stuff. And finally, I would learn how to do some CSS in React. So that would be some basic stuff, like how to do inline styling, how to import your CSS file, and stuff like that. And that would basically encompass all of the beginner stuff. You can spend around a week to 2 weeks. It highly depends on what kind of developer you are, how much experience you have. I think you can do it in 2 to 3 days, and I think you can even skip it if you're interested in that, because not skip it, but like skim through it, because the more you stop and like try to like hammer a topic in your head, the harder you'll find it to understand it. You actually learn a lot more through creating stuff and doing it over and over again than obsessing over the topic and trying to understand it without actually having practical use cases. Now we would get into the intermediate level, and I would probably spend around a month learning this, or even more if you want to. It would include stuff like more harder use cases of the use state, learning the use effect hook and all of React's lifecycle methods, learning state management with the use context hook and the context API as a whole, probably how to make a website with multiple routes using React Router DOM, knowing how to navigate through the website and knowing how to actually build a website that looks like a real website. Then I would probably learn how to fetch some sort of data from an API and display it in your screen. You can use different external libraries to do that. You can use React Query. I really love it. You can just use the fetch API and use the use effect hook to do that for you. Doesn't matter which approach you take, but I definitely think this is a good stage for this, because now you can start actually building dynamic websites without having the knowledge of actually building your own API. But if you already have that, you can apply that as well. And at this stage, you can start building really nice projects. I would recommend definitely spending more time trying to build projects and challenging yourself than just watching tutorials or even reading through the documentation. If you ever run into a problem, refer back to the documentation or ask ChatGPT or something, and it can help you. But through building, you'll learn. And I definitely think you should spend a good amount of the 1 to 2 months you're learning this actually building projects that you want to and actually challenging yourself. Now we get to the advanced part of the React learning experience, which would be learning all of the remaining hooks that exist in React. You don't have to learn every single one of them, but learning the ones that you think are going to be useful for your use case. Probably the use ref hook is one of the most important ones that I haven't mentioned yet, but I think it would be important in this stage. Also learning how to do some complex state management in React. I recommend getting good with libraries like React Query at this point and how to actually manage your states with it. Getting good at optimizing your code for performance and stuff like that. And maybe spending some time watching best practices videos and understanding how to better write your code in React. Super important though. I think at this stage, you're ready to learn TypeScript. And I think it would benefit you a lot if you spend a good amount of time learning how to translate everything that you've learned so far into also doing it the same way, but with TypeScript. Finally, I also think testing in React is important. However, I do think it's that kind of thing where you'll have to learn eventually. If you want to learn it at this stage, feel free to do so. It is super important. However, most people don't actually test unless they're going to be working at a job or starting their own startup. So if you are in one of those two cases, I think it's important. If you're not, I think you can skip through it if you're interested in doing that. But I also think it's important. So whenever this point, you choose whatever you want to do. But this is just me outlining what I think could be cool and what I think could be important. Also, I think you could maybe learn how to introduce GraphQL into React. Now, this is not necessary for everyone. I personally learned how to integrate GraphQL using the Apollo client library, but also GraphQL is losing some of the trend that it used to have. So I'm not really sure if I would deem this as the most important thing to learn, but I definitely think it still has some momentum. So if you already know how to use a GraphQL API, or if you already have a GraphQL API that you want to use, maybe learn how to integrate it in React. It could be really important. Also, at this point, you might want to learn something other than Vite. So throughout all of this, I've recommended you guys to spend some time learning Vite, right? But if you're at this point, you've probably heard of something called Next.js. And Next.js is gaining a lot of momentum. It is really nice. It allows you to do a lot of stuff that you couldn't before with Create React App, and it differs a lot from Vite as well. And because of that, a lot of companies actually use Next.js and require you to know that. So I would definitely spend some time learning Next.js if you're interested in that. It would be a whole other video, I would say, if I wanted to give you topic by topic. But the thing is, Next.js is very similar and includes a lot of the concepts of what you've learned so far. So it would be more of like just adding a couple stuff to the things you already know and changing your perspective on how a React app should be structured. Now, this is basically it for all of the beginner to advanced topics. At this point, you'll choose completely and you'll know how to actually progress. There's stuff that you'll only learn after you run into problems. Like if you ever need to make a website that requires multiple languages, you'll learn how to internationalize your website, how to localize your strings and make it be present and change depending on the language. If you ever run into breaches in your website, you'll spend some time learning security best practices and how to protect your website, stuff like that. So I think at this point, there's no reason for me to actually structure out everything because there's no structure. At this point, you will just learn everything and know what you need to learn yourself. So I hope you guys enjoyed that breakdown. Now, as a final part of this video, I want to spend some time explaining my approach of how I would actually learn. Because a lot of people comment on my videos saying, hey, I love the way you teach. I think it resonates with me, but I'm stuck at this point. Or I've been watching tutorials and I can't get out of this specific trends where I'm just watching tutorials and I'm actually not gaining anything. So I want to give you guys my perspective on it. Back when I learned React, there weren't that many super long videos on YouTube. So if you see YouTubers like myself making videos on YouTube, we might have videos which were like 5 hours long, 8 hours long, huge courses. And the reason for that, I believe specifically, at least from my perspective, people just started watching those videos more and more. I noticed that whenever a video of mine was super long, more people would watch it. And I don't know why, because I personally don't like super long videos. But I don't know if you guys are the same. So I would say that if you spend 10 hours watching a course, but non-stop without actually breaking it down and building something on your own in between them, I think you're not doing it right. My approach would be the following. I would go through each of the topics and I would watch a tutorial on it. Maybe even watch a course that is like, I don't know, 2 hours long, 3 hours long, something like that, but not watch it all the way through. You know, not just copying what the person is doing. I'll learn something and try to maybe do it myself, but in a different way, you know? So if I'm teaching you React states and I'm teaching you how to click on a button and make something show up on the screen, you know, with a state, I would probably watch that, understand what they did to do that, and then try to do something a little bit different using what I just learned. So maybe trying to make myself be able to click on a button and change the color of a text, you know, in my screen. Or if I'm building an app that has a lot of CRUD operations, right? A lot of create, read, delete, and update operations. I would spend some time learning how to maybe do some other more complex operations, how to divide my components in a different way, how to do things different from what you're watching. Because if you're just obsessing over the way the instructor is teaching and what they're doing, then you're not really learning anything. So I would basically spend 70 to 80% of my time learning React, just building projects. When I learned, I faked it till I made it. So like I would learn like till the intermediate level and then start building a project that was out of my league. You know, I built a Spotify Tinder app like website, which was a kind of like a website where you match with someone based on your musical taste. And you know what? When I started building the website, I barely knew how states worked. I literally didn't know anything. But I would run into a problem and I would be like, okay, I want to do this specific thing. And I would search on Google. And then I would learn how to do that because that's the thing that I needed. So I had a use case for what I was learning and automatically that just put something in my brain, you know? So I would just try to consistently challenge myself through projects. And that would also keep your interest up and keep you motivated. So that is the approach I would take. don't spend your time watching tutorials over tutorials over tutorials, because that doesn't really matter, you know? And also, don't go and learn a topic just for the sake of learning a topic. Learn a topic if you find the need to learn it, you know? If you've never noticed the need to learn Redux, don't go ahead and learn Redux, you know? Like, only if you're like, okay, I realized that my website would be better if I learned this, then actually go and learn it. So that's my approach with it. That's how I think you'll kind of get unstuck from tutorial hell, by just building stuff and challenging yourself through more and more complex projects. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like down below and comment what you want to see next. Subscribe, because I'm posting every week and I would massively appreciate it. If you guys are looking to deploy a website, check out our partners Hostinger. I'll leave a link in the description. They're really nice. This video is not sponsored, but I always like shouting them out because I do really like their service. So that's basically it. Really hope you guys enjoyed it, and I see you guys next time.